Welcome to Circuit de Catalunya, just north of Barcelona for the final weekend of Blancpain GT Series for 2016. 9 events behind us. This is the finale, not just for the season, but also for the Sprint Cup. The last free practice session of the season, 1 hour and 20 minutes. This morning's 1 hour and 20 minutes. John Watson peppered with the odd incident, people going out on old tyres, some making a bit of a mischief and falling off the circuit, but a very technical circuit, 16 miles around here, and certainly not the circuit you raced on when you last raced in Barcelona, but we'll come back to that in a minute. But the stretch of tarmac you can see in front of us, conditions perfect, but unusually for Barcelona. Not a lot of wind. You can see the flags fluttering gently on above the pit lane, but for once, wind not a factor here.
Well, there are two principal factors that affect what people do throughout the course of a day. We alluded to what we know about the track changes, its personality changes dramatically. And as we look into the Bentley garage, this is the number 7 car that Stephen Kane, in the closing moments of FP1, mysteriously lost the back of the car, maybe rode the curb, and then the car sort of speared off 45 degrees and into the tyre wall, and it was the left front of the car, the bonnet, the radiator, probably all that area, the body, the carbon fibre and the mechanical parts needing to be replaced, if not certainly very closely checked. But going back to the wind, you can see the flags on top of what would be the hospitality area here when a Grand Prix is held. They're waving, but there's no great amount of wind, and in fact it's blowing 90 degrees to the main straight, so there's no advantage or disadvantage. The big disadvantage when it blows down the straight is here, for example, into braking into turn 1, where the rear of a car can get unstable, especially cars that are hypersensitive aerodynamically. And I don't think any of the GT3 cars that race here this weekend would come into that category, but they're all affected one way or another by aerodynamics, by the wind direction, and of course also the nature of this racetrack, the way its personality varies between first thing in the morning to last knockings in the evening, and the bit in the middle of the day now, this part of the day, probably the most benign part of any running. So what we have seen this morning, where for the first time the Blancpain GT Series coming here to Barcelona in its current guise, fast lap time of 1 minute 46.3. We mentioned that it's probably more or less going to be dictated to by a set of, you see them there, a brand new set of sticker tires going on the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari. Probably at the first flying lap will be that car's quickest time. Maybe if they get held up, a second lap might drag a time out. But it is so tyre conditional.
But looking down at the crews, not a lot of them looking as though they're going to be going out any time immediately. It's also about finding your space around the circuit, because if you've got that 1 or 2 good laps on your fresh set of tyres, but this is free practice, this isn't qualifying, but the teams, as we said, don't know the circuit enormously well. They do need track time. McLaren, they came away with the Endurance Cup in the Nürburgring, but not having the pace to really be at the front end of the field. Let's see what they can do. But so far, I think this morning they were down in 27th and 33rd positions out of the 34 runners. But you said that's not to be seen as a distraction, working through the programme. And maybe a lot of this free practice session too will be the very same story.
Yes, very much so. And I think that what we might see as we go into FP2 is teams that didn't run a very fresh or new set of rubber in FP1 will be doing so, because this will be to some degree the only opportunity they have to simulate what they will then be confronted with when we go into the 3 qualifying sessions, which start at 3:30 here in Barcelona. And we've probably gone past the part of the day where the track will slowly come back to the teams, but they need to know now in these conditions. Roughly what are we now? We're coming up to 12:30. The first race on Sunday, the sprint race, will be at 9:15, and the main race will be at just after 2 o'clock. So it's all information gathering. The times in this session are somewhat meaningless ultimately, because what really will matter will be what you do in qualifying. But this is the opportunity. If you see the number 4 Audi being pushed out on those dolly jacks, that car was one of the number of cars that ended up in barriers. Dries van Voor behind the wheel, losing it, I think, coming out of turn, I think it was turn 4, I'm not quite sure. So the track is green, and we've seeing now cars make their way out. So the benchmark time, Bruce, that we have got to keep a focus on will be the time set by the number 5 Audi, and that was by Picarello, very strong run indeed. Very quickly he set that time for 146.3.
And he ended up just over 2/10 clear of the car that crashed right at the end, the number 7 Bentley. And we saw just at the start of the broadcast here, Andy Soucek from the sister Bentley crew. Of course, he's able to get suited, booted, get ready to go out to the number 8 Bentley, and they were near the front end too. Very difficult though when you have your garage split. One half they're racing like mad to at least try and get the 7 Bentley out before the end of the session. Clearly not ready yet,
no,
while their rivals are going out to get track time.
You've just got to work at your pace. You know what you need to do. A team like Bentley with M Sport running it, they've got a very sophisticated operation. As we look at the 75 Audi just waiting to be released from.
In fact, you'll see the number 8 Bentley going past that mechanic any second now. I think there it goes.
The thing that was interesting to me, and this again goes back to how this circuit is so critical on tyres, time you do your time. There was Stephen Kane who ended up in the tyre wall in the number 7 Bentley, but on his second lap, it would be his first flying lap. He set the second quickest time overall in that 1 hour and 10-minute session, and it never changed. It remained second quickest overall. So that's the fact that everybody has got to be aware of. I'm sure they all are. And how they then manage at which point they want to do that brand new tyre run with, let's say, the preferred driver of the two in terms of who can get out and do a quick time. And just looking down in Bernd Schneider in the 86 Mercedes and the 74
the Audi.
Yeah, the Audi. So Bernd Schneider already in the second sector, faster for everybody. Now there's only 7 or 8 cars out on track, but nevertheless, purple for Schneider as he going to complete a lap, indicative of what he might do. Hopefully he hasn't used the best of that set of tyres. We don't know which set of tyres he might have on, but hasn't used them too aggressively, too early on in a meaningless out lap.
If people are coming to look at Blancpain GT Series for the first time, they just stumbled across this amazing championship, 34 cars finishing the sprint series overall. It's not just about getting one driver ready for qualifying. They're 2 driver races. You've got to get both drivers really on point, have you not, John?
Yes, you do, and both drivers contribute, so it's a very important consideration. So you unlike in single-seater racing, which is very much more of a selfish form of the sport, as we go on board with the number 8 Bentley.
Should be Andy Soucek at the wheel. He knows the circuit very well indeed. Spanish driver.
Now what he's doing here, he's slowing right down. Now he gets on the throttle because he doesn't need to go through that sequence of corners quickly. He needs to be fast here, turn 16, to maximise drive onto this almost a kilometre long straight, which actually has a bit of elevation change. From this point onwards, pit lane exit starts to drop down and then just panels out, just levels out as you come into turn 1. Always a great overtaking place, but a place that easily defended. So Soucek rides the curbs. Where's where probably, that's, I would imagine, where we saw Stephen Kane getting caught out. Maybe just ran too wide on the exit of turn 2.
And it's unusual as we look. Turn 3 goes on forever, John. Andy Soucek going out towards the edge, nicely, not too much over the curb. You can see a lot of people have been out beyond. Turn 4, hit this is where the fastest of the Audis, the fastest of all, went for its spin earlier with Nikolai Moller-Madsen. And then gradient change, there's plenty of it at Barcelona. Turn 5, we're starting to drop. Now what follows?
Yeah, turn 5 is one of those corners where you aim for the apex and all of a sudden there's a big camber change and it literally falls away from you. And as you get nearer to the apex, actually, in terms of distance, but you're getting further away from it. It's one of those corners that's frustrating, and you just got to make the best of it. You might want to have other car compromises. You don't really have to worry a lot about turn 5. It's not the most important corner on the circuit.
We're just seeing Soucek going through turn 9. Kamsa, top of the hill, blind entry. A lot of drivers run very wide over the exit. Only half the car over the exit there from the Spanish racer Soucek. Now he's going through the little fiddly bit, turns 11 into 12. And then we used to have this classical end to the lap where they'd go straight on at this point, but unfortunately recently as we now turn right, we have to get used to the fact it's been curtailed. We go, that's 13, now 14 and 15, very slow, but you don't want to be too vicious, do you?
No, and again, it's the way that some cars will ride a curve better than others. I don't think being aggressive on the curves in those turns 13, 14, 15 has any benefit, but let's see what Andy Soucek can do. He comes to go second quickest, but a 149.2, which is at this moment substantially slower than we saw from the times set this morning at a 146.2.
Yeah. Now down in the land of Nissan, we saw them with that man there, Alex Buncombe, have a very, very strong finish to get onto the podium in third place at the Nürburgring. But it doesn't look as though it's hurry, hurry, quick, quick down in the world of Nissan.
No, not at the minute. As we look at 86, see just what that's going to be. Bernd Schneider, Jules Simkowiak, still currently top of the list, and that was the last time that they did. 148.4. This needs to be a 148.1. So there's roughly just under 2 seconds between where we finished, or maybe I should say where we began FP1 and where we're beginning FP2.
So Bernd Schneider, been round the blocks many times, and there's not many things that Bernd hasn't won in a Mercedes. Super strong, sharing the 86 with Jules Simkowiak, and well, it'll be interesting to see where they can fare this weekend. In terms of the mix of circuits, we have balance of performance and everything, but some manufacturers just know that some circuits are not so well suited to their car. How well do we think the Mercedes will do here at Barcelona with that long straight and the generally sweeping corners?
I think the consensus is the Mercedes is a pretty, not to say easy, but of all the cars out here, it's probably the most user-friendly in that it's very good and stable in high speeds. Okay, it's maybe a little bit large in those very tight sequence of corners at the very end of a lap, but overall I would have expected the Mercedes, the AMG GT3, to be strong here throughout the weekend. One of the factors that will also come into play will be tyre usage, how much wear, how much degradation, how much the tyre can stand, because we've got a lot of corners, long parabolic corners, big load on the left front particularly, and also to some degree on the left rear, but it's the left front that really gets nailed, gets hammered here. So teams and drivers and engineers will try and cheat the car a little bit to reduce that amount of offset with the understeer by giving the car a little bit less stability. But then you have to worry about the rear of the car. If you go too far, then you'll end up with the rear becoming wayward, and then you've got even bigger problems.
Well, good opportunity to catch the driver who's second fastest at the moment. It's the McLaren at the end of that train of cars, Alvaro Parent. But the fact he's caught up with the blue Tempo Racing Lamborghini, you can see Alvaro's backed off. He doesn't want to be on their tail. He wants a clear stretch of track to go out and do his things. His best lap, 1 minute 48 point. In fact, he's just gone down to third place by a few thousandths. 1 minute 48.666. But we all know, really, when we come to qualifying, we should be looking for the 1 minute 45s. I think that'd be, or maybe even slightly lower.
Well, that's what I would like. But, you know, again, we're going back to what we've been repeating since we started this broadcast. Track here is extremely variable. And maybe people have gone out of no tyres, but I somehow not convinced of that. But the times we're seeing at this moment, 1.8 seconds off the best from this morning. And those best times are set actually in the early phase. In the case of the quickest car, the Nicarello Phoenix Racing Audi, that was set on his 13th lap, which is rather unusual. But let's stay on board with Maxi Book.
84 Mercedes, of course. Maxi can take his third Blancpain title in 3 years if he hooks it up this weekend. Just narrowly deprived of the Endurance Cup, 5 rounds within the Blancpain GT Series at the Nürburgring last weekend, but he's purple on the first sector time. At the moment, he's second fastest overall, a third of a second down. This part of the circuit, crucial for him, John.
Yeah, but what was key was he actually made the ideal apex in turn 5. He got the nose of the car, he got the whole car rotating, got it in as you would like. So after turn 9, we'll come up to the end of sector 2, runs the car right out to the edge.
That's
in
all right.
acceptable limits, not a problem. So will it be purple or will it be green? But remember that last lap that this car did, it's green. Looking for something like minimum 2 seconds improvement to be anywhere near the period or the pace that we saw, well, just basically 2 hours ago.
Well, what he's got now, turn 12 has been negotiated, no traffic ahead, through 13, down, no cars for him to see in front of him. That is great news. But again, he may, if he's very lucky, go top in this session. That's held by a teammate from HTB Motorsport, Bernd Schneider, 1 minute 48.151 seconds. Could dip into the 1 minute 47s, but it doesn't look as though he's going to go a whole load faster than that. 1 minute 48.023. So we're still the wrong side of the 1 minute 47 barrier.
Just, you know, welcome to Barcelona, folks. This is what, you know, how do you explain it? How do you get, you know, let alone an audience, how do you get engineers and drivers to get their head around the fact that this is, it's like a quicksand, it's always moving. You do all your work, all your engineering, all your briefing, all your downloading or whatever. You go back out and suddenly you've lost the best part of 2 seconds. Why? Well, there's no grip. The grip levels have changed.
Well, you do see an awful lot of understeer, a lot of curb thumping there from Van Splunderen in the 100, the Tempter Racing Lamborghini, up in 6th place. Good showing from Max and the crew, but having to work very hard indeed, particularly, as you say, a combination of fast sweeping corners and then those tight ones at the end of the lap, and they all look very messy. Other than the very best who've really got it hooked up on great rubber through those final corners.
I think the tradition here at Barcelona is when you start your lap with a fresh set of tyres, by the time you get to the conclusion of the lap, that set of tyres is screaming enough. And whether you try to preserve the tyre through sector 1 and not be quite on it, to have a little bit more in reserve for the final sector, but at the end of the day, if you've got grip, you've got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, grip, you want it. You also want a clear stretch of track. You can see a number of drivers backing off. That was one of the Belgian Audi Club Team WRT R8 LMSs in the background, but working his way around the lap still. Well, he was 6th fastest. He's been demoted by two places down to 8th, Max Van Splunderen. So it's 2 Mercedes, 84 and 86 at the top of the chart, and then number 98 has just moved up. That's one of the 2 Row Racing BMWs into 3rd place. Nicky Katzberg at the wheel. Down in the pits, busy times, quite a few of the teams pulling the dolly jacks out to drop their cars back into the garage. The 74 is the slower of the 2 ISR cars, the sister car, with Philippe Salicada on board, up 5th fastest at the moment.
Yeah, interesting, 4th quickest is one of the AM cars, Stefan Lamaret in the 55 Ferrari. Yeah, of course you can't. But why? Where's that popped up from? As we look at the 23 Nissan, as it goes on its way, looking to see whether they've recorded a time. The 22 Nissan still in 24th place. Alex Buncombe on his out lap, so we'll see whether he's got any pace. The kind of pace that he showed 2 weekends ago back at Nürburgring.
Entirely so. You asked where the 55 Ferrari came from to suddenly go 4th. It wasn't there this morning. They were 25th quickest, but for Stefan Lemaret coming very well indeed, sharing with Claudius Stanefosic.
Well, just looking, Buncombe got on the brakes. Hard stab of the brakes. The front of the car just weaved around a little bit. So coming out of that long turn 4, see if we can see the nose of the Nissan. Can it get right in? Well, we're not going to look at the Nissan into turn 5. We're watching the progress behind, and that is at the 25.
Yeah, it's 25, and that's got who's on board at the moment. I shall tell you, it's Edward Sandstrom, the Swedish racer, but back in Nissan world.
So up the hill we come out of turn 8, and then the blind apex, and of course left-hand drive. Most of the cars are left-hand drive, so you're looking across through the car. Some drivers think that on a clockwise racetrack, left-hand drive is an advantage. Down the hill, hard on the brakes into turn 10, and you just got to be neat and tidy here. There's no point in trying to overdrive. Then the little sort of curve flick through 11, then into this very long, almost 2 apex. Depending on your choice, it looks like Alex Buncombe's trying to keep it tight all the way around. But look, now the fight that he's going to have coming to the end of this lap, and this part of the lap that Nissan feel that they really are, in a sense, they said disadvantaged. The car doesn't like this kind of corner.
Well, looking at the timing screens, Alex has set 2 green times, but that's because he hadn't set a flying lap before. So, of course, there will be an improvement. But I don't think with those times he'll go vaulting enormously up the time charts. In fact, he goes up to 3rd slowest now, from slowest, 27th position. And some way off the pace, 3.8 seconds. Early days yet, more than an hour left in this free practice session. And John, it's getting a little bit brighter out there. And if anything, the flags are now starting to flutter that little bit more. The wind's starting to come up the start-finish straight.
So Nico Müller, this is the car that we saw in the barriers early on, so down in 19th place, somewhat irrelevant because the car has had to have a little bit of repair, particularly to the left side front of the car where it was up against the ball. So Müller, he's probably done an installation lap. What's he done? He's 5 laps here. Then they've done an installation lap, check it out. So personal best, 1st and 2nd sector for number 4. This is a car that ought to be a front-running Audi. Where does it go? 19th and a 149.9.
It's not all going smoothly out on the circuit. Car number 89 has had a spin. That's one of the trio of ACA ASP Mercedes.
Just while we've been off looking elsewhere, Maximilian Bucher's broken into the 147s, but more importantly, the number 33 Audi of Robin Freins, likewise, so 0.003 of a second between this car, Robin Friends, and he slides the back of the Audi coming out of turn 5. So we're getting bit by bit closer. We're still 1.5 seconds in effect away from where we were this morning. Again, coming out of turn 8, that back end of the Audi just wanting to continue going one direction while Friends steering the car in another one.
One thing very important this weekend, change of driver lineup. The 33 Audi is shared with Enzo Ida, who is leading the Sprint Cup rankings coming here. So he's got a lot on his plate ahead of him this weekend, looking to do it. Robin Friends transferred across. Look at the concentration. It's a great camera shot looking back at Robin Friends. And in the lead up to this weekend, Enzo really excited, concerned about whether he's going to do it or not. Has to really, he thinks, finish on the podium tomorrow afternoon to take the Sprint Cup element of the overall.
If you reflect back to Budapest, just about nearly 4 weeks ago, an outstanding. I actually said to him at Parc Fermé, is this your greatest drive or achievement behind the wheel of a car? I mean, he did a magnificent job. And, I mean, he is a gentleman driver in the sense that he's not a professional driver, but he's driving like a professional.
Well, his advance in the last couple of years has been really, really strong, and that is the point. He's not the fastest driver in the whole Team WRT setup, but he is closing the gap, and that's all you can ask him to do, and he's clearly consistent. That's why he's leading the Sprint Cup rankings.
I would imagine that Enzo wants to continue in Blancpain next year. I'm sure that he'll have a seat in WRT, or if he chose anywhere else, he would be an extremely beneficial addition. And anyway, again, the whole thing about rankings and whether you're silver or gold, and as drivers progress and they improve, then at some point maybe the rankings are going to have to be reassessed.
Well, a driver who doesn't need reassessing, Nicky Katzberg, 5th fastest in the 98 98 BMW, but just to point out, Robin Friends has taken the car he shares with NZ to the top of the charts, 1:47.7. He's ahead of the number 84, the title challenging 84 Mercedes, but right now Nicky Katzberg in one of those two very elegant looking row racing BMWs, doing what he does best. The Dutch racer, he's just over half a second off the pace at the moment.
Yeah, and the sister car, Alexander Sims, he's in 7th place, slightly further back in terms of time, but then the two BMWs, which didn't really feature very much. But actually, just while I'm talking, it's the number 6 Audi, the Phoenix Audi of Markus Winkelhock, personal best sector 1. Fastest overall, purple, sector 2. So are we going to have a little eye on Winky coming up to this last tight, twisty, almost again, not using the curb, and I think wisely, because I think that a GT car curb has more detrimental effect than beneficial. So let's see with this number 6 Audi, can it go to the top? Timing and scoring, it does! 1:47.549.
He's powered by the kebabs at lunchtime. We saw him nipping in to have a very healthy lunch down there. Good job though for the Phoenix Audi crew. So it's Audi on top from Audi, it's 6 from 33, then the 84 Mercedes, and then still in 4th place, Stefan Lemery doing a fantastic job for that AF Corsa Ferrari crew from the AM class, not the Pro-Am, the AM class. What a great run.
I mean, that popped up about 10 minutes ago, and it stayed resolutely 4th quickest. I mean, a great run indeed for Claudio Stanovic and Stefan Lemery. Where did that come from? Just suddenly, it's like a spike that you didn't expect to see, and there it is. In the meantime, Winkelhock has gone fastest overall, purple sector 1 on this is going to be his 7th lap.
And that's
Rennie Rast pops up now to join him in number 28.
Audi time at the top 3 are Audis. Yep. Just to let you know, that first sector time, which is around just over 30 seconds, is 3/10 quicker than he managed last time around. So Winkelhock really going for it. Clear stretch of track ahead of him. We've just got, which is the Audis, is that ahead of him? That's the 33 car, which Robin Friends is coming slowly back to the pits. But that shouldn't get in his way at all. So there's Winkelhock, fastest first sector of all. Not quite the fastest, but we're talking a few hundredths off the ultimate pace in sector 2. So again, it's about completing that lap, going through long turn 12, and then you get to the fiddly bit. You get the right-hander at turn 13, and down the deck you go.
Well, just watch this lap and see whether anymore. No, again, it's staying pretty well away from the curbing, and again, just sort of consolidating. My view is that if you use the curbs aggressively, you'll go slower. So the lap 1:47.5 is the lap to beat, 1:47, well, thousandths of a second slower. But more importantly, Rennie Rast picked it up, Bruce, 28, he's fastest overall sector 1. Looks like this is turning into, I was going to say a beer fest, it's like an Audi fest.
Well,
we're not even in Munich or Ingolstadt, we're in Barcelona.
Looking out the window, but we said this morning with the trees having grown up over the decades, it's 1989 the circuit opened here, and it's really starting to mature. The undergrowth around the circuit looking good, but certainly looking very good if you're in a... Doesn't look as though René Rast in number 28 will go to the top of the time charts. He didn't have the best of middle sectors, but certainly he's going to maybe get to a 1 minute 47.6 thereabout. This is free practice, but these drivers are really starting to get a feel of the circuit, get on top of the cars, work their tyres. Let's see what this lap gets completed at. 1 minute. Well, he's improved to 1 minute. He's got to within 0.063 of a second, as you can see on the graphics on the screen.
The time in the middle sector, probably 0.2 of a second he lost against theoretical best, and virtually matched the final sector. So Audi's 6 and 28 dominating, and 33 for that matter. And the first Mercedes has been demoted down to 4th place. That's still Maximilian Buch.
But changes, glad we've just called 87. That's Morgan Moulin-Trafort. He's 5th fastest. He's top in Pro-Am.
Yeah.
Again, Mercedes going well, but you can see, along with Stéphane Lemeray, we think probably some rather fresher tyres being thrown at those cars early on. But there's Morgan sharing with Jean-Luc Bobelic. It's a team with 2 very long names, Morgan Moulin-Trafort, and doing a very tidy job. He did a lot of understeer there, though.
Yeah, but I mean, actually, I think he's overdriving, because coming into turn 4, all of a sudden you sense that, oh, I'm in trouble, I'm going to dive to the inside of the corner to give myself that little bit of extra space. And again in turn 5, didn't quite get it right, through 7, up the hill 8.
But it was still his fastest first sector, even if it was rather ragged. And let's see what he can do in sector 2. He's got to...
Oh, again.
He's about to rejoin sector 2 as he comes out of turn 9 back onto the circuit. We've decided 2 wheels off, fair, 4 wheels, not really that good at all.
4 wheels are going to get the attention. So let's look and see. So 41.5, that middle sector. It's a very good run for a car that is driven slightly wrong. Again, I just get the sense from what you were seeing, a little bit too much overdriving. And if you compare what the Mercedes is going to do, will it be more aggressive with the curbs than the Audis were? No, not in this case, and not on the exit. So everybody's avoiding that bad curve right in the middle of turn 14.
Well, let's see, just about to complete his best 1 minute 47.887. This one will be slightly slower with that not such a good middle sector. Yes, running off the circuit at the top of the hill at turn 9 cost him dear. But that said, 2 laps very close to the ultimate pace that he had been setting. That's 2.5 wheels off, I'd say, at turn 9.
Almost, I think he might have caught the curb on the inside, because look, there's the Mercedes behind. You'll get away with that. But it's when all 4 wheels are over that red and beyond the green, that's when it's going to come into play. So 23, Nissan goes back out again, still showing Alex Bunker behind the wheel. Nissan's 26th and 28th. They said this is not going to be our best circuit. I suspect they didn't envisage, maybe it's still early days, but they maybe would have thought they could have been a little bit further up than at the tail end of the top 20.
30 of the 34 runners have set flying laps in this session. The number 7 Bentley, I just want to check that wasn't the 7 in the background behind the 63 Lamborghini. I can't quite pick it up yet. The 7 still being repaired from that shunt from earlier from Stephen Kane, right in the final minute or minute and a half of free practice 1. But I think it was probably the 8 Bentley coming back out onto the circuit.
It is. Bentley behind. Just ahead, Mirko Bortolotti, who was, as Lamborghinis were, again, going back to Nürburgring, outstanding. And that was the winning car.
Well, that's 9th fastest at the moment. Yeah, set a first sector time that's not quite there. No, 7/10 down on the ultimate sector time. So I think we're maybe, for some of the drivers, now going to the middle sector of this session. We've certainly seen lots of improvements on the times, but now slightly fewer green timing colours on our screen. Green means that driver or that car's best sector time or lap time.
Interesting, a big improvement from the 59, Garage 59 McLaren from Martin Plowman. That's just outside the top 10 in 12th place. So, and they've all been sort of shuffled back, because Plowman was probably 11th because of the time of this Lamborghini, which has finally found its way past the Santa Lot Racing, Edward Sundstrom, Romain Monti, Audi. So Mirko Bortolotti will probably unintentionally slow the pace of the Audi down, because he wants to get a run. That's what he wanted to do. Get the run through turn 16. He's ahead of the Audi. He's now got, in relative terms, a clear track. So this car currently 9th, 148.277. But that's 1 point. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. It's 0.7. Yes, 0.7 of a second. Just 3/4 of a second away from the time that has been established by Marcus Winkelhock.
4 of the top 5 drivers are in the pits at the moment for driver changes. So Marcus Winkelhock, René Rast and Robin Frientz, the Audi trio at the top, all in the pit lane, and Morgan Moulin-Trafort in from 5th fastest in the 87 Mercedes. But the 23 Nissan not really shown enormous pace as yet, just down in 29th, penultimate position at the moment, but increasingly with cars coming into the pit lane, a little bit more space out on the track. How's Alex Bunker? Well, he set his fastest first sector of all. I think it's about 0.2 of a second down on the best in sector 1. It's 0.3 down on the best, but he's improved in sector 2. Green is good in the world of timing screens. Riding on board with Alex, he's got obviously the final sequence. That's turn 11 now. He's going into the long uphill right-hander, turn 12. And then he gets the fiddly bit of the track, the final 3 of the final 4 corners, not quick. Here's turn 13, starting to turn down the hill.
Yeah, I mean, 2 good sectors from Buncombe and the 23. Nissan again, neat, tidy, not using the curbs, staying off them. On the exit, of course, you can run it to try and give yourself a slightly better entry into turn 16, and then hard on the throttle, the V6 twin turbo Nissan engine. So where will that leave as we see?
We've lost him on our timing.
16.
16, there we have, but I think we need to look at number 88.
Yeah, exactly.
Felix Rosenqvist,
my man,
is starting to wind it up, and Rosenqvist goes 3rd. He just vaults a mere 20 positions up the timing sheets. So he's now 0.1 of a second down on the ultimate pace. We're looking to see what the McLaren crew can do. They've not quite been there yet this weekend, but they're working towards a programme. And the one that's right in the championship mix is the 58 McLaren. And it's Rob Bell on board. He took the Endurance Trophy last time out, the Orange Cup Trophy, with Shane Van Gisbergen, who wasn't there, was actually away in Australia competing, and Komi Ledegaard. But this weekend, the 58 is being shared with Alvaro Parent, and it needs to find some time.
Yeah, this is our new camera, further innovation in terms of bringing interesting views. And certainly in the opening laps, this camera is going to be working overtime. So the 58 McLaren, I mean, they're really trying bit by bit, but this is, I mean, I look at what McLaren Garage 59 are doing, and I just see Baz Linder's name written all over it. I mean, if a team's going to stick to an agenda, they're the team that's going to do that. So they've been gradually moving forward. Martin Plyman in the sister car up in 13th place. So there's 13th and 16th. Let's see what Rob Bell can do. And this is the car's 9th lap of this session of free practice 2.
What's worth pointing out, he's 1.1 second down on the ultimate pace. That can be clawed back. And Rosenqvist 3rd fastest. It's still the rebuild going on, but just want to point out Rosenqvist could be going top on this lap in the 88 Mercedes. That is quite a lot of crimping work on the Bentley.
That chassis leg has been well and truly, it's designed to do that. That's the whole purpose of modern production car engineering. And then it's designed to deform like that in an impact. But nonetheless, it sort of adds to the considerable workload of the guys working on the number 7 Bentley.
And while they're working on it, we could have a new driver going to the top. Will the 88 look at it now? Felix Rosenqvist go top? Yes, he will. Won at 47.329. He's now 2/10 clear. This Swede just gets better and better. For years, he was stuck, not quite winning the FIA Formula 3 Championship, European Series. Then he got it done, and this year he's been racing Indy Lights and Estates, doing a fabulously strong series of Blancpain stuff, as well as DTM. And it's great when a driver of this calibre gets the breaks that come his way. It looks as though it was all just starting to stretch away from him. This year, he's absolutely nailing it.
Well, there's a wave of young talent that has had nowhere to go in the single-seater department, and they're seeing the opportunities that Blancpain GT Series, Endurance and Sprint offers up to them, and they're bringing with them a new level of performance. And I think it's exciting because I love to see the next generation coming along, and eventually, the old guard has to sort of fall and to say, look, these are the future. We have had our day in the sun or the rain or whatever it might have been, and that's the way motorsport is.
Now the 55 Ferrari's changed over. It was up as high as 4th place with Stefan Lemaire. This is running in the AM class, and now it's changed over to Claudio Stanevich. And let's see what he can do, but they're still right in the mix. 8th place overall, 0.8 of a second down. A few minutes ago, it was only 0.6 down until Felix Rosenqvist went so super fast in the 88 Mercedes. Now back in the world of Nissan. Let's see, we've been looking at the
22,
23.
yeah.
This is the 22, it's the sister car. And having to really make its mark. That Sean Walkinshaw, you said just he's fine, but a little bit battered maybe after that shunt in Italy.
It was a nasty accident. It wasn't his fault. He got blindsided by another car braking rather earlier than intended. So that's the 23 Nissan we're watching now. The sister car is just out of sight into turn 1. So we're going to stay with the 23 car. Let's get a lap and watch what Alex Buncombe turns in. The track camber works for you. Then you go back to the left. Watch the outside. That's where we saw Stephen Kane getting caught out. Now you get into the first of these really, really long, tire destroying, and particularly the left front. And you try to balance the car on the throttle, and then if you do that, you end up with the rear tire. So into turn 4, you dive in a bit early and let it go out, then come back again. It's almost a 2 apex corner, another 180-degree corner. Then getting into turn 5 is always the trickiest corner in that sense. But Buncombe gets it in, makes a nice apex, runs out to the outside of the track, totally within the limits. Through then sort of almost a non-corner curve 6. Then the first part of this SS7. Then make sure you get the car back to be able to get on the throttle early through 8. Drive it up the hill. The blind apex, you launch it into it. Good entry by Buncombe. Good exit, so it carries momentum and speed. Important corner to carry speed. Second quickest part of the racetrack before you get on the brakes. Big hard brake. Another overtaking area here in Barcelona. This 4.6 kilometer, 16 corner racetrack. Then into 11, and then the long again, this corner 12. Another tire torturer. And again, as you go through it, the understeer picks up, and then eventually the back end might decide it's going to give up as well. Then finally this revised, well, it's been here for about 6 years now. It's a non-satisfactory, in my view, option, but it was done for the reasons of safety at this corner, turn 16, because with the levels of downforce that was being generated by single-seaters in particular, it was becoming too easy flat, and if something went wrong, then it was going to be a serious incident. Bob Neville, and there his face might tell you what he's thinking, because the 22 car, Sean Walkinshaw, still in 28th position, and the 23 car, where have we
17th. It got to within 2/10 of its best time, even though there was nothing ahead of it. So working not to a programme of whacking new rubber on those, working towards the programme of getting it hooked up ahead of qualifying. Lamborghinis, easy to pick out, bright green livery, but the number 19 crew down into, we're looking at now Lucas Stoltz on board. He was the driver who stole pole out of the mist to the Nürburgring, but he's down in 22nd position at the moment.
I mean, how do you explain that? How do you explain a driver in this car with the same Pirelli tyres, okay, different conditions, different temperatures, track was damp going to dry, just stuck that car in pole position, and currently they are, 2.3 seconds off the fastest time still for Felix Rosenqvist. It's simply down to 4 round black bits of rubber on your car. And the variation in track between when they ran earlier, and they didn't run early in the morning, the bronze and the silver drivers did, and then the rest joined in.
John, you talk about how the track keeps changing, but let's just go back to something we touched on earlier. When you last raced in Barcelona, it wasn't here, it was down in the middle of the city. Tell us more about Montjuic Park.
Well, the most wonderful, I would call it, city circuit I've ever raced on is about, 30 kilometers from where we are here at the Circuit de Catalunya. It was Montjuic Park, which later became actually the center for some of the Olympic facilities when Barcelona held its Olympic Games. It is, I believe, the best street track I've ever raced on. It was dangerous, it's not used any longer, but what a circuit. You felt like this is what motor racing in Formula 2 or in Formula 1, I raced in both categories, what it was all about. And inevitably, but you look at Monte Carlo as street circuit, or Macau, another street circuit, where the margins are so narrow, and in the case of Macau, physically narrow. Montjuic Park was more like a proper racetrack, but it was up in this national park, high up on the hills in the city of Barcelona.
But that's the point. It was right in the middle of the city. You got amazing, for the photographers, it was a dream as well as for the drivers. You got these stupendous cityscape backdrops. Nikolai Moller-Madsen out on the current circuit here. But great place, and also if you do go to Barcelona, you can just drive up to Montjuic Park and drive around the circuit as it was. They're the roads at the top of the hill, so you can get a taste of how it was back up until the mid-1970s. The number 5 Audi at the bottom of our charts hasn't set a flying lap yet.
It's just going out on its out lap. So
this was fastest this morning in the hands of Alessio Picardiello, and his best time is just a nanosecond under 1 second quicker than Felix Rosenqvist has done in free practice 2 to go to the top of the charts. So at the moment it's got the driver who went for the little spin down at turn 4, so it's Nikolai Moller-Madsen at the wheel. And again, it was all about track time this morning, so any offs into the gravel, you know, reduce the learning that drivers can enjoy.
Well, when we saw him early in that session, again, I made a reference to the way the body language of the car was looking, and suggesting that maybe he was just simply overdriving the car with not the most knowledge of the racetrack. Now back in the car with the benefit of having done one session, a little bit more calm, a little bit less sort of frenetic in the entry and the braking, getting on the throttle. Just watch again and see. We've seen the Audi staying off this curb here, so he does likewise. So one of the things I think that stood out is that initially there's a lot of aggressive use of the curb in turn 14, and I've seen virtually none of it in this second FP session, free practice session.
Yes, it's almost as though a memorandum has been sent down to all the teams, stay off the curbs, and it goes up to 28 fastest. That was the first flying lap. We've now got 31 of the 34 cruiser set flying laps. Jazeman Jafar has just gone out in the 85 Mercedes, so that would be car number the 32nd of the 34 runners. I can't work out who else isn't out there, apart, of course, from the number 7 Bentley. So there's one other crew looking up and down the pit lane to see whichever other car isn't out there, isn't in the pit lane at the moment. Number 11 Ferrari, of course, with Michel Bronicheski, so strong for Kessel Racing in the Pro-Am class this year, down at towards the tail end, but now starting to set some times. This, though, is with Giacomo Piccini, and let's see what he can do as he picks his way up, but early days yet, and I'm just trying to get some heat into the brakes as well, snaking around quite hard.
I mean, Michael Bronicheski is a very, very capable driver indeed, and has done a stunning job throughout the 2016 season in whatever he jumps into, because he's never out of a race car. But again, it'll come back down to the same old story we've been talking about all this afternoon, and certainly this morning, is it will be tyre dependent. And what we will see later on this afternoon when we complete our 3 qualifying sessions is something that might look entirely different to what we're seeing right now. And, you know, give everybody a brand new set of tyres, whether it's in Q1, Q2 or Q3, it's up to the teams to make their choices. But whether we get to see a repeat of what we saw this morning when the best time came from that number 5 Audi of a 146.3, I mean, virtually it's within a second of other than a few thousandths. The 85 Mercedes.
This is the late one out of the pits, the one with the yellow flash. 84 has got the red. 86 has got the green, and it's Jazeman Jafar.
That was the car that wasn't. We haven't seen that car out. That's its first lap.
Yes,
so that was the one car that we couldn't figure out who hadn't been out. So Jazeman Jafar, again, we don't know why that car lingered in the pits for virtually half the session. But the young Malaysian driver, who has done again a very, very impressive job in his first season in GT racing. The only thing that sort of slightly blotted his copybook was that dispute over the real estate as they came over the top of the radio at Spa for the 24-hour race with Hjalmar Berman and the sister car, or the sister team to the HTP car, and there was a collision. It actually damaged the chassis in that car sufficiently that they actually had to replace it with a fresh chassis. It was going to be A, cheaper, B, quicker, and C, less expensive to do that than to try and repair that chassis.
Well, of course, all the top team managers have to do the sums, and speed is of the essence. 85 waiting for Jazeman to complete his first flying lap. He's got the final 4 corners. That's turn 13. Then you drop down the slope to the left at 14, the right at 15. Here they come. And again, as we said, John, staying off the curbs as much as possible. So the car's balanced. You can get on the power as early as you can, whether it's to complete this lap cleanly or more to the point, get the next one really nailed down.
Top 10 time, do you think, for 85? Let's have a look and see.
Probably the top 27. Oh, look, so it is. You can tell from the outside there. So 2.5 seconds off the ultimate pace.
I mean, so much for... I mean, eyeballing a lap like that, how would you have guessed that was only going to be 27th quickest? You couldn't have known it. as
Not from the
BMW
outside.
goes across. Alexander Sims goes up to 12th place in the 99.
That's one of the few improvements that's had anyone near the top 10. We've just been through a sequence. A lot of the drivers did the first part of this session, 1 hour, 20 minutes long. We've just passed the halfway point. A lot of drivers now turned over to the second driver, who will be going out in qualifying this afternoon. So, top of the timesheet, still that 88 Mercedes. Tristan Vautier has just taken over from Felix Rosenqvist. Number 6 Audi from Phoenix Racing. Marcus Finkelhock set their time at 0.22 of a second behind. And then we haven't really mentioned so much the 28 car. Of course, it started with René Rast. We talked about him. Will Stevens has taken over. He's now out on the circuit. Just having a chance to look at the Row Racing garage. They're down towards pit exit end of the pit lane here, the sloping pit lane at the circuit Catalunya. And the 99 car is down. That's the one that Alex Sims has just improved. We saw Blancpain, his teammate, watching on from the pit garage. Very tidy out around the circuit.
Yeah, there's only, well, in fact, they're running 12th and 13th. Nicky Katzberg and the 98 BMW is directly behind in terms of performance. So it's Alexander Sims, brakes heavily down into turn 10. There used to be a really nasty bump as you came in, and some drivers used to go slightly more to the middle of the road to try and avoid it, whether it's still there. The GT cars have got a lot more suspension travel to absorb any irregularities. These cars don't look to be being as unsettled into turn 10 as your lightweight single-seaters might do. Again, the BMW staying off that aggressive curb in the middle, and he decides, I've done my run, I'm in the pit lane, so he's happy for the moment to be 12th quickest.
Well, interesting to see if the 98 car with Nicky Katzberg goes above it. I think it will this time around. Does he go above?
Yep.
Yes, he does by 1 position. They just swap positions. 13th becomes 12th and vice versa. But just under 1 second away from the pace, still set by the 88 ASP Mercedes of Felix Rosenqvist, and now on track at the moment, Tristan Vautier. So, is there another quick lap in Nicky Katzberg in the 98 BMW? Chop and change with his teammate, but he does need to find a second to go to the top of the time charts in this free practice session. Uncharted territories, out and beyond, John. We've been talking about track limits.
I wonder did he have a depth sounder with him? He was so far off track. He moved over he could have been over the Marianas Trench. He went that far off track.
Well, he had the space to go.
He was way. He hadn't even completed the corner. I mean, it's irrelevant because it's not a. It doesn't relate to what a grid position is going to be, but it indicates that maybe he got a little bit wide early, caught a bit of rubber or whatever on the outside of the track, and that was the consequence. And that's something that's not unknown on the middle to exit of turn 3 as he runs pretty wide coming out of turn 9. And I would imagine what Nicky is beginning to sense is that there's not a lot more time in this set of tyres, and okay, I've slightly improved to the detriment of my sister car, the 99 car of Alexander Sim. What I want to be doing is finding that just under a second I need to put my car at the very top of timing and scoring.
Well, you've got to see what you can do at each point around the circuit. Turn 3 is such a long uphill right-hander. Certainly
He's coming in. He's coming in.
Having seen his sister car pull off just ahead of him last time around, going into the pit entry now, the 98 crew. So it's going to be busy down at the Row Racing garage. Still 36 minutes of this final free practice session to go. Qualifying starts at 3:30 this afternoon. Super quick fire qualifying. 3 sessions, one very much straight after the other.
Mike Parisi runs it wide out of turn 9, down the hill, looking for those bumps. And either they've smoothed the circuit at that point. I think it was resurfaced within the last year or so, maybe 2 years. And then up into this long, never-ending turn 12. But he looks to have reasonably good grip because he's holding the car in. He's not having to make that sort of out and cut back in again. So the Frenchman who lives not a million miles away from Pau, that wonderful ramparted city in the southwest of France, and comes across a lot of turn 16 now. This should see an improvement from the 26, and it does, and it goes 4. I wonder why. I wonder, do we notice something there that nobody else did? Like through turn 12, the car actually was able to hold a much tighter line.
What could that be down to, John?
I wonder what that might have been, Bruce. I don't know.
Should we get back to you later?
I think we need somebody in the pit lane to go and ask the team, why was that car suddenly much quicker?
So, quicker, had grip everywhere, but it still ran wide out of turn 9. Beautifully picked up by the crews Who else is looking quick at the moment? That's one of the few green times on our screen in recent laps. We've had the changeover of drivers. Will we see in the final 10 minutes any fresh rubber being put on these cars? Well, there's a question. Do you use up a set of fresh rubber? But that was the best lap we've had for a while. 4/10 off the ultimate pace. Dries van Tor out in the number 4 Audi, and that is not on our top timing page. It's down in 29th out of 32 runners so far. Below us, 2 other cars to come out on the track. Dries had an off in free practice this afternoon, starting to try and hook it up.
Another young driver into GT racing this year, again at the 3 Hours of Nürburgring, the final round of the GT Endurance Championship at that famous, infamous venue. And he was the middle stint driver, and I, again, amongst other drives, thought his middle stint was one of the best I've seen from him. And when I said it to him, he went, you what? He didn't, I don't think he felt maybe in himself, but I thought from what we were watching,
from what we saw,
scoring,
absolutely,
it looked a stellar drive. And a young guy learning on the hoof, making progress.
But having plenty on his plate, picking his way up through the Blancpain GT series. Then last weekend he was out at Spa-Francorchamps with brother Lawrence and Frederick Vervish.
No,
in a prototype.
Will Stevens.
Well done. I shouldn't have automatically bracketed Lawrence Van Tor and Frederick Vervish.
They finished second, and in their first outing, run by Pierre Dudonné, who's an incremental part of the whole WRT operation. I mean, imagine if they'd won. First time out, have blown the doors off all the LMP2 aficionados.
It was a very strong run. Led the race at various points. And
actually led it in that last hour. He had a splash and dash to get to the end.
So exciting days for a lot of the young drivers who have really started coming to the Blancpain series and seeing where they might go to in the years ahead. And when you're 20, there are plenty of years ahead. So for Dries van Tor, a lot to be doing, but he's still not up at the front end of the field. He's still down on our second timing page, 29th position overall.
Well, this Audi is going reasonably quickly. The number 5, it looks like it's got personal bests and significant personal bests in sectors 1 and 2, and we're waiting for it to come up and complete.
Well, Dries has just gone up to 21st position, just seen him cross the start-finish line.
So I'm going to look to page 1 and see where the number 5 Audi, the car that was the dominant car earlier this morning, where it finishes up. Well, it doesn't. Well,
it stays in the same place.
Surprise, surprise. Very surprising, because sector times look reasonably good.
Certainly good enough to gain 4 or 5 places, but maybe a little slip up towards the end of the lap for the number 5 Audi. 26, that's the car that Mike Parisi had put up to 4th place. So obviously, presumably having spent a lot of his time going to Pau to watch the racing, he's putting it to good practice here. And when you look at the cars of the Blancpain GT series, teammate cars often have very little to separate them. We do like it when they give us clues like different coloured wing mirrors or little markers on the front, so at least from the head-on shot we can try and differentiate them. Not always the easiest thing with Team WRT with all their Audis, because they're black and red and you just have to go looking for wings. But good news indeed that for Mike Parisi, the Santalok racing team, that they are giving us these clues.
That was a deliberately slow lap from Mike Parisi, so he's going to have another go and see whether he can find any more time in those tires as the 74. Normally that's the car we see Frank Pereira in, and that is up in 8th place.
Now, lots of traffic out on the circuit, and the fastest run of all, Tristan Vautier. Well, he's taken over quite a while back from the driver who was fast falling the black. That was the Black Pearl Racing Ferrari, which is the bottom of the time charts with Christian Hook. So much out of the way he got off the circuit down in turn 10.
I mean, you would be very grateful. And the AM drivers sometimes, they decide that's the best thing to do. Just if you've got space, just get out of the way and let a much quicker car go through. And I mean, he wasn't required to do it there, but take it.
Yeah. So off the circuit, the number 66 Ferrari, but back on. Driver intentionally moving off the racing line. Now let's see what Tristan Vautier can do.
He did a 49.8, so that was again about 1.5 seconds away. Traffic probably
will affect this one as well
to the most of that time lost. But again, I suspect that the time that was set earlier by Felix Rosenqvist was on a set of tyres that were probably most fresh. As we look into the Audi garage, and
that's the car that Dries van Tor just got up from 29th to 21st position.
Having a good old shake around the bodywork. Now maybe he's feeling some kind of vibration because the bodywork isn't totally reattached, and this car had front end damage to it. you get a vibration from the aerodynamic, the splitter particularly coming close to the ground, and then it starts to chatter or porpoise. I wonder maybe if that's second guessing. If you go back to the 22 Nissan, and that's seen some improvement. The 23
is 18th.
It's 18th. I'm looking to see with the 22.
26th.
It's still 26th, so it's still got Ricardo Sanchez, I beg your pardon, behind the wheel.
What we do need to see, though, just before the end of the session, or maybe now we can find out, is what the progress is down in the world of number 7 Bentley. It didn't, to my eyes, look as though that's going to be ready to go and play until qualifying. And we will hopefully go and get a view shortly, because it's not just a race out on the track. Well, it's not a race on the track. They're just trying to set the best times they can. But for the crew, they've not just got to complete it, they've got to complete it and know it's absolutely right before they go out in qualifying.
Yes, and I think that they would rather spend that additional time without the pressure of doing this session, although that they will have lost a significant amount of information, primarily about tyre usage, tyre alteration through a run. But they want to get that car right because they know they've got a quick car. Stephen Kane illustrated that very early on in that session this morning. So if you like, having possession of a good grid position is more important than maybe pounding round and gaining information that you might think is somewhat dubious, because we know the reputation of this racetrack is such that actually what's happening is isn't of any real value whatsoever. So Ralph Sanchez comes through turn 3 in the Nissan.
Also, there's a certain irony, John, in that when the number 7 Bentley was damaged at the Nürburgring, they had to get another chassis up from Barcelona.
Yes, they did.
So now we're here at Barcelona. They can't send for one at the Nürburgring, but anyhow, working on it hard. 458. We haven't seen a lot of that this weekend. That's new to the championship. Rinaldi Racing. Alexander Matchell has raced for Blancpain Racing with Rinaldi in the Endurance Cup, but he's come across and being joined by fellow German Christopher Brook. And 458 at the moment. It's 25th fastest. Under 2 seconds off the ultimate pace, so that's pretty tidy indeed.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the
Pro-Am racer.
Watching this, the amount of track that he used on the exit of turn 3, you're not seeing a driver who's wringing the neck of the car. A little bit of throttle usage on the exit of turn 5, the back end of the car just sort of swung round. Go back to the McLaren making its way out of turn 8 up the hill.
17th fastest at the moment. Alvaro Parente, he knows these cars very well. John pointed out earlier, he spent a lot of time crossing the Atlantic to race in the Pirelli World Challenge. Fastest of his first sector times, but I think that's about half a second down on the ultimate pace. His second is half a second down on the ultimate pace. The next one, though, he's almost right on the pace in sector 2. He's within a few hundredths of a second of the ultimate time. I don't think the traffic up ahead of him is close enough to delay him. He's gone through turn 12 very tidily, turning into 13 down the hill. Yeah, looks like a clear run to the flag. So just remember, he started this lap 17th fastest. He is so far 1.3 seconds down on the ultimate pace, but this looking by far the best lap from either of the Garage 59 cars so far this weekend. Where will the Portuguese racer end up when this lap is completed? Up to 8th place, so he's now just over half a second down on the ultimate pace. Good lap.
Yeah, it is a good lap, and I think it's a better time than the lap looked, because again through turn 12, as we go back into the Bentley garage, that is, I'm assuming, number 7 still, it is. I thought that Mike Parisi's Audi in turn 12 looked much better balanced. The McLaren looked like it was struggling to get the front of the car to bite. That was washing, and consequently Alvaro would have to hold back on the throttle until he got to the point where the front began to give him grip again, as the 458 Ferrari, or 333 this time, bobbles and weaves as it comes into turn 10.
Well, that will go up the charts. It's down in 30th position, but it's got Norbert Siedler on board, so expect him to improve. And also Alvaro Parente on his next lap has improved on his first sector time again, so he could chip away a few more positions. McLaren getting in the mix, and certainly expect the 333 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari to move up from its 30th position. As you can see, 2 green times on the screen there, so Norbert Siedler really getting it to fly. Will it go up into the top 20? I'm fairly sure it will. So around the final corner it comes, turn 16, waiting for the time to come in. No, it doesn't get into the top 20 first, as close as you could be. So great lap there from the Austrian racer. Down the appreciable slope. You don't always spot it on television, but down, it really, you can feel it if you're walking back up the hill. But down into turn 1, and it looks like Rob Bell is getting ready to go and see what he can do in the 58 car. Big weekend for Rob. He's had a really successful season already the Blancpain Endurance Cup champion, shared with Shane van Gisbergen and Komi Lerugar. He can land the overall title here this weekend in the car you're looking at now, the 58 McLaren.
Yeah, I mean, again, referring back to what we saw earlier on in FP1, the McLarens were, well, the 59 car was 27th. The 58 car, the one that we're just seeing coming in the pit lane, it was actually continued on, it looked like it was going in the pit lane. It was all the way down to 33rd. So typical again of the way that Garage 59 goes about running their cars. They know when it's important to be quick, and they know when they want to carry out particular, whether they are tests or going through routines, doing slightly longer runs. So Rob Bell, suited, booted and helmeted, and he's got the top of his helmet there you see something that make him look like out of Star Wars. That attaches to a pipe which blows cool air onto the top of his head. So if you keep your brain cool, your body fundamentally will think that, well, I'm not hot actually after all. That's what they tell me.
Yeah, well, of course, you know, you think back, I think it was mainly in the IMSA series in the States where 30 years ago they started pioneering those cool suits the drivers could wear, and certainly if you were racing somewhere in Florida, not just the heat, but the humidity as well.
Strange, I wore...
Vitally important.
Well, I wore them, and it was a very strange thing because the cool suit was doing something to your body which your body found unnatural, because as you exercise in extreme temperatures, your body will naturally want to release fluid through sweat. And here was something, you know, cheating your body. The thing that was probably the most weird of all was the cool cap, which, again, you had cold water through capillaries in your balaclava, and that was very weird. And occasionally, when the thing failed, you were like your power boil, because the fluid that was in the capillaries would just end up getting up to the heat of your body, and in some cases going even higher, and that then became extremely uncomfortable.
All these systems have been enormously refined over the decades, and certainly for those that later this year head out to the Sepang 12 hours, they'll be hoping they can have far more refined systems to keep them cool, because nobody ever races in Malaysia and doesn't get hot.
I mean, I think that for some teams they might consider the downside of having an aircon unit installed would be offset by keeping your drivers fresh. So if you have to carry another 20 or whatever, 15 or whatever weight an air conditioning unit would weigh in a GT car, but it's a thought that teams will have to consider, that those that are going to go down to Sepang. Of course, the circuit there is also just being freshly revived with changes to the racetrack surface. Changes. Oh wow! Look at that.
Well, this is Maxi Book, 6th fastest at the moment. I thought he might be starting to go for a time, but that is pushing, I would suggest, on tyres that aren't of the freshest, but fantastic shot. You know, call me old-fashioned, I still like to see a car go sideways. I don't have to take the slower lap. Look at this replay.
Yeah, coming up out of turn 2, then into this long turn 3. Now, is he going to run out of track, or is he just running out of... He certainly the back end didn't have enough grip in it, but I wonder whether he encouraged that. Maybe he just felt he didn't want to run out quite as wide. So the young German, diminutive young German, Maximilian Buch.
Certainly one of the driver pairings, he and Dominic Baumann. If you look from the front of the car, you can tell he was on board without even looking at their helmets, because Max's is so low in the car.
So there you can see just, there's a cooling vent. That big trunk coming out of the dashboard is there to blow cool air. That's just air at whatever ambient temperature. But no doubt a air conditioning unit could be plumbed in to the Mercedes somewhere, and then you'd get obviously the much cooler air. But even in climates like Malaysia, where you've got intense humidity along with intense heat, the circuit is virtually on the equator, within a couple of 100 miles of the equator. So it never really ever cools down. Even in the middle of the night, you walk out of your hotel, it's like walking into a Naga oven.
And even when it rains, and by golly, when it rains, it rains. And talking of rain, speaking to some of the drivers this morning, I said, what's your weather forecasting? They said, it might be damp when we go to the grid tomorrow morning, which could make the qualifying race very interesting indeed. This point in the championship, though, of course, there are points for the top finishers in the qualifying race, and those could be the difference between the title or not. So serious business. And
remember, a point for pole position in each of the categories, the 4 categories that all these 33 competitors are competing in. So a lot of things that you've got to consider.
But we're looking at the 84 Mercedes in the overall championship, 5 points clear. That's all. 129 points to Baumann and Buch, 124 to Rob Bell in the 58 McLaren. That could become 4 points. Let's see. But at the moment, where's the 84 car? 6th fastest. Where's Rob Bell? 8th fastest. It's very close indeed between these guys. We'll start to get more of a true picture, and we'll find out who gets that bonus point for pole this afternoon, starting at 3:30. But right now, we're looking at the Blancpain in the 99 BMW. That's been just outside the top 10. They're 14th and 15th at the moment. The sister car's 14th, this one's 15th. Is there an improvement from the car? Not at all. We're running down towards the end of the session. I very much don't think they'll be putting a new set of rubber on ahead of qualifying. The car looks relatively well balanced, as it has throughout this season, but not right on the pace this afternoon.
No, I wouldn't expect to see anybody doing anything rash at this phase, but having said that, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that, you know, location. In other words, where you are on the grid can offset maybe using a set of tyres that you might actually want for either the driver change in the sprint race or the driver change come the feature race, the championship race, as it will be on Sunday afternoon. There's lots of things that team managers, they will be continually assessing the value and the worth of doing something which might seem a little bit irrational, but there might be, in their thoughts, a very practical and good judgment.
But no, but I mean, this is all part of it. It's all part of the learning experience for the drivers and the crews to work out when to use their benefits. They haven't got them to spread liberally over the weekend, so fresh rubber has to be limited and choose your minute. But at the moment, we've got just under 20 minutes remaining in the final free practice session. First one this morning, we ended up with the best time of 1 minute 46.330 seconds, set by the number 5 Phoenix Racing Audi by Alessio Picardiello. And at the moment, the number 5 Audi is down in 30th of the 32 runners. Still 2 cars yet to come out of play. Still waiting to see if that number 7 Bentley emerges. Looking from our high position over the pit lane, I can see the 8 Bentley sitting out on the pit apron, but no travel at all. In fact, still body parts in the front of the number 7 pit garage. So that doesn't look as though it's going to get out. We have 17 and a half minutes remaining.
Enzo, there we go.
There's Enzo Ida. Now, this is a driver, this is without doubt the biggest weekend of his racing career. He's been building towards it and has had an exemplary run. He's not in the running to take the overall championship, but he could win the five race integral part, which is the Sprint Cup. He's been sharing most of the season with Christopher Mies. Christopher is away this weekend, and he's got Robin Frieds as the reserve driver. It's not a bad little backup, is it?
No, I think anybody would be more than happy to have either Christopher Mies or Robin Frieds as your co-driver, and Enzo, who is his car currently in 5th place. So let's have a look and see. His outlap in effect was a 151, so that's of no relevance whatsoever. Comes up to turn 9.
And it's worth pointing out, John, that he's got a 17-point advantage over Baumann and Buch in the 84 Mercedes in the Sprint Cup. He's not looking for the overall honours, but he's out here to get track time, learn this track, doesn't want to take too many risks, just wants to make sure that he can preserve that points lead. Even if it comes down to a point at the end of the season, he's just got to make sure he does the maths as he's out there, lets the team keep him informed of where the 33 Audi is. And the good news for him, Robin Frieds has put it in, he's done a time that's 5th fastest so far. So it's about learning this circuit now. 16 minutes to the end of this session, checkered flag comes out to end free practice 2. It's right now all about the Belgian racer getting track time, but he's decided very late swerve ahead of the sister car to come into the pit lane. That was a bit of a swerve.
Yes,
for the two of them.
I think more surprise to the sister car behind. And he puts his hand up just to indicate, I think he was putting his hand up to indicate, sorry about that, I made a late call.
Looks like he's about to jump out. He was popping the belts there, wasn't he?
He was releasing the belts. You're allowed to undo the shoulder straps, release them, but you're not allowed to undo the buckle until you come to a standstill. And they're doing a simulation driver change, Robin Frieds and Enzo Ida. They're not familiar partners this year, but I think part of the reason, it might have been a late call from the team, or maybe because there was a Nissan on a lap, and that might have cost them a lap which wouldn't have any beneficial gain to the team. So Enzo out of the car, Robin Frieds in.
But again, these are some of the many elements you have to consider. And with Belgian Audi Club Team WRT, they have the longest checklist of the lot. So,
and that's where they win so many events. They can turn struggles into victory because they are so, I mean, they're coming up with concepts and ideas of which many are knocked back because, nobody else has them, and they've used their imagination and their interpretation of a regulation to come up with an idea, and that gets, no, you're not allowed to do that either. But one of the things, and I think I talked about this probably back in Hungary, and again, part of the reason why, in the case of Audi generally, and WRT maybe in particular, is that the R8 is not the biggest, physically the largest car in the pit lane. So consequently, when you come into your stop, it might only be in terms of a second or maybe just over or just under, but you might as well take it if it's there to be taken. So, there's a reason why WRT are consistently outstanding in their pit stops, and that might be a contribution.
Well, while you were talking there, John, I thought, let's work out, we know the number 7 Bentley hasn't gone out. Which other one? I couldn't work out which car. It's the number 1 Audi. It's Lawrence Vanthoor, Frederick Vervisch have not been out in this second session. We have 34 runners here at the Circuit de Catalunya for the final round of the Blancpain GT Series, and some of the top guns sitting in their pit garage. I don't know if there's any problem, or they just feel they know what they've got to do and they're saving rubber.
Oh, no, I think there's a reason why they're not out there.
Third on the overall points, third and fourth, Lawrence Vanthoor and Frederick Vervisch for the overall Drivers' Championship.
They would not be sitting at ours. Make no mistake, there's a reason why, and clearly it's taken all this session.
We've had over an hour.
That car did not have any damage that we saw.
No, not that we saw.
So there must be a mechanical or some other issue, whether it's technical, your gearbox, suspension. But if it's suspension, that's relatively easy. It's something more significant, and it might mean then you've got to strip the car back to get to wherever the problem lies to effect a repair.
They've lost an hour.
A replacement.
Yeah, well, maybe if you're going to have a problem and you need to discover it, maybe free practice is the time to do so rather than going out in qualifying. But out on circuit, the number 5 Audi, that was fastest in free practice 1, is down in 30th position, but just changed over from Nikolai Madsen to Alessio Picciardiello, who was the fastest of all this morning. Did a 1 minute 46.33. That's 3 and a bit seconds faster than it's done so far today. So let's see what Alessio could do, but I don't think this will be anything like the new rubber he had this morning. And this is more for just looking for driver experience around the Circuit de Catalunya. 4.655 kilometres, 16 turns. Now, John, join those two pictures together like a dot to dot.
Well, there's a reason. There's a major mechanical issue, and whether the engine, it wouldn't be an engine that's up on engine mileage. That would have been changed before they came. So something has occurred with the number 1 that they had to take the engine out.
And you wonder if that happened just at the start of this session, or they've discovered it in free practice 1. We can't tell from the outside what's at what point that problem arose, but we can see what the effect needs to be made.
I can assure you, it's unlikely they're going to get out in this session with just over 11 minutes remaining.
84 very much in the mix for both titles. Just missed out in the Endurance Cup at the Nürburgring. Maxi Buch, we saw that extravagant moment down through turn 3. We got the tail end right out on the 84 Mercedes. 6th fastest at the moment, just out of the pits. Half a second, just under half a second under the ultimate pace in free practice 2, but out on circuit, gaining track time, gaining experience. Just going to have a quick check on the flags over the pit lanes. That's all we can really look at to judge. They're quite limpid now, I'd say.
I mean, it's a benign kind of day. They've got the cloud cover that was hanging over the circuit all the way up until midday. That's now breaking up, and the day that we were meant to have about 25, 26 Celsius is beginning to materialize. Incidentally, just looking further down, the number 2 Audi, Michael Meadows, they're down in 29th place. He just did a personal best in Sector 1. Nothing of any major consequence in Sector 2, but no doubt that we'll see a step up for the number 2 Audi when it completes its lap.
And it's worth pointing out, I think the most laps anyone has done in this session. In fact, the number 8 Bentley has got 30 on the board. Andy Soucek on board at the moment. The 84 Mercedes, 6th fastest at the moment. They've done a good number, 26 laps. So plenty of knowledge being gained in this session. 10 minutes remaining.
Pit stop
for the Nissan crew, by looks things.
So it comes as the 22, or is this the 23? 23.
23. So it's Mitsunori Takebashi.
And that is still in 19th place. Sister car is 28th, still with Ralph Sanchez behind the wheel.
Ricardo Sanchez.
Ricardo.
You're going back into Ibsen days, aren't you? Ralph Sanchez.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. I could have said Ralph Lauren. Ricardo, yeah.
So still busy in the pits, and now some of the teams, that's Attempto Racing, they're practicing their driver changes. It looks so Max van Sputteren is handing over to Daniel Zampieri, as much for practicing the driver changes, getting the driver change per se to go back out onto the circuit. In terms of, Maxi Bouk has just set his fastest middle sector time, so we could have the 84 Mercedes making a gain from 6th place. The 99 BMW sitting resolutely Philippine at the moment.
Here is the Mercedes.
Well, there's the Mercedes, and the BMW is still down in 15th place. Maxi Bouk needs to gain a blink of an eye, and he'll go up to 3rd or 4th position. Personal best in that middle sector, 47.8. Within 0.026 of a second of his best. He stays in 6th place, but those are quite handy laps at this point in the session to be putting in.
That's a very helpful lap to the team, because to get a personal best at this stage in the session, probably with a set of tyres that's done a fair amount of running. Don't know what the fuel loads would be, but certainly that would be a lap that would be noted as the Audi. Couldn't quite catch the number of the car, but it got well and truly. The back end snapped aggressively.
It might well be Michael Meadows, who just...
Well, Meadows has just gone up to 22nd, so he's still pushing very hard.
Maxi Bouk has just set a purple sector time, so the first sector of this lap, here comes. Just remember, the fastest time so far, 1 minute 47.329. That's not the Mercedes, that's the one that Jules Simkowiak and Bernd Schneider. Schneider on board at the moment, down in 11th place, keeping out of the way. We want to see the 84 car, and here it is. That's the 84.
Where did that time
Where did it come from?
Tyres.
Well, yeah, I didn't
Nothing
actually...
else.
Did he go into the pits while we were looking out the window? Perhaps he did, because we saw him go very sideways on, we presume, the previous set of tyres. But right now, Maxi Bouk has got it very much hooked up through turn 9, over the top of the hill. Down he goes to turn 10. Traffic up ahead. What's his middle sector time? It's just over 1/10 of a second off the ultimate pace on the middle sector. Will we see an improvement? I think we might, just about. Will the BMW get in the way? I don't think so too. Oh, now it is.
It is. It's going to have an interference in the time. I mean, Book's having to, you can see he's backed out of it already. I mean, he would have overrun the car. He's got in a good lap, a lap that really was going to be a help to the team. Now the BM pulls out of the way, but Max Bouk, I mean, that's disappointment. And it's almost in effect had an interference on the lap he's about to go on to as well, because he didn't get the cleanest of exits out of turn 15, and that lap 147.9.
He's done
10th of a second.
He's 3 laps within 1/10 of a second, so that is all power to his elbow. And that was with traffic.
That lap would have probably cost him 0.3 of a second, I would have thought,
which would have put him up into maybe 2nd place.
Yeah, it would have been an improvement significantly as we go back to the 86. And so if Bernd Schneider on board, who we saw him step out of the way, let that sister car go through and not impede its progress. You know, good use of the mirrors, good spatial awareness, really, which is something that you only get with age and experience.
So they say.
Look at the way, love the way that Mercedes just leans into. It's the way that Schneider enters the corner. He gets the rotation of the car in such a way that he's not dependent on the front to make the car turn. He's got the back rotating in unison with the front, and that's little things like that to me just say there's quality.
Yeah, decades of quality in Bernd Schneider, but neither the 84 nor the 86 are the best placed Mercedes, because Jerome Polygon will be smiling down at ACA ASP, because still the 88 car, Felix Rosenqvist set the time. Tristan Vautier went out, couldn't improve on it, but that's still top of the times, 1 minute 47.329 seconds. The best lap for the 86 car at the moment is a 1 minute 48.1. Don't think we'll quite see an improvement. No, we didn't, but anyhow, still good competitive times from Bernd Schneider, just outside the top 10. Now looking at else, another improvement midway around the lap from Maxi Bouk in the number 84 car. Will it stay still in 6th place? 86, we'll see what Bernd Schneider can do in the first sector of this lap. We know the car's looking very good, very balanced, certainly with Bernd at the wheel. A joy to watch. And again, that rear shot, a little bit of an adjustment partway round turn 3, but nothing too untoward. 84, is there an improvement from Maxi Bouk? No. Yes, there is. He goes up 1 place, he got the blink of an eye, another blink of an eye, he'll be up to 4. So that is 4 laps within 0.2 of a second.
The overruns coming into turn 1 and has to go off track over those speed bumps, so...
Well, with 5 minutes remaining, you think that's probably his best shot, but the fact of the matter wasn't one quick lap, it was 4 very quick laps indeed. Looking very strong for the championship challengers.
He didn't get the reward for some of the speeds in some of the sectors that he ought to have done, but he will know within himself just where the strengths of this car lie. We go back to Bernd Schneider again. I think the car looks great coming into turn 9. Headlights flashing at the 58 McLaren Rob Bell. Now Bell is actually ahead in terms of overall lap time on the 86 Mercedes, but at this part of the lap it's Bernd Schneider who feels that he's going the quicker of the two and he wants through. Rob Bell pulls over, he makes access.
Well, that was good of Bell to do that. Don't forget, this is free practice. It's bragging rights, if you will, but the teams deep down know if they've had a good session, they will have the information they need. They'll be looking at the weather, seeing how it's going to be, starting at 3:30 this afternoon. It's just coming up to 1:45, just passing 1:45. And what we can tell you is, looking out of our commentary box, great view across the circuit. More blue sky than there has been. It's starting to open up a little bit. The cloud base is rising, and that front-on shot, looking at Bernd Schneider coming down into turn 1, you can see plenty of sunlight bouncing off the sides of the car. So the biggest gain recently has been Maxi Buch, just gaining 1 position. He only gained less than 0.1 of a second. It's so tight, but out front, still the number 88 Mercedes. Now the 23 Nissan, that's down in 19th place. Mitsunori Takaboshi at the wheel. He's 1.3 seconds off the ultimate place. Good chance to check out how the conditions are around the circuit. That's turn 9 over the crest of the hill at Campsa, down to turn 10. John, where was the bump you talked about?
On the right-hand side as you come down, and from certainly watching the GT cars, it looks like it's been pretty much levelled out. I don't know whether that's because we're seeing much more softly sprung, much more compliant GT cars, as opposed to watching highly nervous, neurotic, in some cases, single-seaters.
And while we look at the 23 Nissan, seeing if it can pick up its pace, Bernd Schneider has got a bit of clear track in the 86 Mercedes, 11th fastest at the moment. Bernd trying to pick up his pace, doesn't improve in the second sector, but may complete the lap having got into the top 10. We'll find out shortly. The car in front of it, the car he's trying to pick off is the 55 Ferrari from Claudio Stanovic from the Pro-Am class. No improvement there from Mitsunori Takaboshi in the 23 Nissan. The 84 will not improve further because it's been brought into the pits, well picked up by the crew down there. So a very strong session. We haven't heard the last of the 84 Mercedes for this weekend.
No, but it did enough. It gave us enough indication from the sector times that we were watching to say that there is pace in the 84 car. The other aspect of events at Barcelona is that traditionally you don't see a massive amount of overtaking, which then once again puts a premium on qualifying. Max Buch out of the 84 car, talking to Dominic Baumann it is, who's already changed into his civvies. So he'll be redressing in just over an hour's time when qualification gets underway. So which Audi is this? Number 33, Michael Meadows.
No, that's Robin Freins. This is the car that could win the Sprint Cup this weekend.
Up in 6th position for the Belgian driver. Interesting, he's got a map on the racetrack attached in case he's not quite sure where he is, but that's just to give a quick, he wants to talk to an engineer, he's been in turn 6 or turn 10 or wherever.
They prefer that than hearing, I've parked the car at turn 4. It's obviously a tricky corner. We did see the number 5 Audi that still has the fastest time of the entire meeting to its name from practice this morning. Free practice 1, almost exactly 1 second. 0.0999 of a second is the difference between Rosenqvist's time this afternoon, the 88 Mercedes, and the best by the 5 Audi this morning. So certainly we will see times getting down into the 46s, maybe the 45s.
Yeah, just
when we go to qualifying.
Watching him on board, coming into, he's in the pit lane now, so coming through those tight turns, 14, 15. How much work behind the wheel you have to make, the cut from going to the left and back to the right. So, young Belgian driver with just under, half a minute of this session remaining. He's into the pits as the Bentley, is that number 8? I'm sure it is. Car 84 must respect track limits at T2. Haven't seen that, but that's the first track limits.
Well, that was we saw the moment where Maxi Buch overran into T2, didn't we? He just had his fastest lap. He ran across the curbs.
Oh yes, yes.
So that wasn't doing it to gain an advantage.
No,
that
not
was
least.
really trying to find an advantage.
Just,
if you look at it from a slightly different angle.
I think, in fairness, that was the option that was available to him, and he took it, but he wasn't trying to gain any advantage. So, anyway,
that's the end of the session. The checkered flag should just be being unfurled on the start-finish line. It's being waved. The first car to take it, the 75 Audi, and the ISR crew have had a good session. Only 18th fastest, Philippe Salicada, son of the team boss, bringing it past one more time. 88 Mercedes has been fastest. Felix Rosenqvist at the wheel for a second time in this session. He is still top of the charts, completing, he just came out of the pits, in fact, last time around, so just completing a flying lap, but topped by 0.220 of a second, much slower lap towards the end, of course. Tyre life for a lot of these cars, just finishing off their tyres at the end of the second. Second fastest, great lap early on. It's Nicky Mermanov at the wheel at the moment, but his teammate Marcus Finkelhock set the time 2/10 down. Is second fastest. Third fastest is the first best place of the WRT cars, and it's the number 28 car that we should look for in that. Will Stevens sharing with Rene Rast. But the number 3 crew, Rodrigo Batista, Sergio Jimenez, some of the last drivers out on the circuit. You look for the bright yellow wings, and there they are. That's the Brazilian crew car. And at the end of the session, that is down with Rodrigo Batista down in 26th position, but they've got plenty of knowledge in their garage to share. 87 had a really strong run through this session, but gradually fell down the order to 7th place at the end. But in terms of where they should be running Pro-Am, they're the top Pro-Am runners. 7th place overall, just over half a second down on the ultimate pace. So ACA ASP will be very, very pleased indeed. And certainly Mercedes are looking pretty strong here, John.
Yes. I mean, it's clearly a battle between the might of the two German manufacturers, BMW, not with the depth of support that Audi and Mercedes-Benz have got. And ironically, one would have assumed that it would have been a HTP Mercedes with the driver lineup they have, but actually I think Felix Rosenqvist is a driver who will have a major future. The time he set, okay, it was set relatively early in the session. Nonetheless, he set it, and that's what he needed to do.
And there's the time, 1 minute 47.329 seconds, 0.22 of a second faster than the better of the Phoenix Racing Audis. And it's Audis for the next 2 places before Dominic Baumann and Maxi Buch, championship outright challengers and in the Sprint Cup. They were 5th fastest, a lot of quick laps. Enzo Ida and Robin Fritz right in behind them, 6th fastest, and Enzo could land on his own the Sprint Cup tomorrow afternoon. Some really strong performances, but still, as in with free practice one, John, still some quick runners, not quite yet at the top. But what we did start to see was Rob Bell and the McLaren crew ended up 8th fastest overall, working their way, as team boss would like them to do, towards the top end. 32 crews went out. We didn't get the number 1 Audi having an engine change, so that's Frederick Vervish and Lawrence Vantor. And the number 7 Bentley didn't complete the repairs after Stephen Kane's off, so he and Vincent Abril spent that session standing around in the garage. We'll see them, we hope, getting ready for the start of qualifying at 3:30. But right now, let's look back to the highlights of free practice session number 2. Circuit de Catalunya, the drivers and the teams just trying to find out what the track conditions are like. Such a difficult circuit to find a level of grip you really want. The 87 car actually went out on new rubber, we reckon, with Morgan Moulin-Trafort pushed really, really hard, but got towards the top end and went for a spin. But Dominic Baumann and quite a few spinners out. That's the 89 car that went round. I think that was Christophe Bourret, but so it's not all good. But look at this for a camera angle, looking back from the garage 59 McLaren. Wonderful, wonderful shots. Can't wait for the start of the race with that. But Audis were working their way towards the front, and the number 6 car, that was Marcus Finkelhock, went to the top, eventually was deposed by the 88 Mercedes and Felix Rosenqvist. Rob Bell for McLaren, all very orderly, decide what the track conditions are like, how the tyres are going to handle, and out he went, ended up 8th fastest. For a lot of crews, it was a long, long list of tasks they had to go through, and for the 7 Bentley crew, they didn't get out at all, but Rob Bell picked his way up from outside the top 20, worked his way towards the front. He's 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. Can he make it 2 championships in 3 weekends, having taken the Endurance Cup at the Nürburgring? Lamborghini started to show well, but really towards the end it was Audis and Mercedes at the top of the timesheets. Fastest of all ended up the 88 ACA ASP. Mercedes 84, the championship challengers, Dominic Baumann and particular Maxi Buch. What a fabulous slide in the 84 Mercedes, worked their way to the front, but always front runners. Vervish and Vantor spent all of their time in the garage, so no running. Maxi Buch kept on fasting, fastest of all ahead of qualifying, the 88 Mercedes. Comeback, qualifying starts live at 3:30. Don't miss it.